Welcome back to the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast. I am Brandon Jadich. I'm your host for today. Conference tournaments are in full swing right now. The regular season is over in the college basketball season. We saw plenty of key results that are going to influence some seeding in conference tournaments, along with just some big time, just brainbuster results like Houston beating Kansas by 30. We're going to dive in. We're going to talk about all of these results that happened on Saturday, including the 4 tickets that have already been punched for an automatic bid to March Madness this year. 4 teams already clinched. Congrats to them. We'll get into who some of those teams are, where they might be seated, stuff like that. The highlight of the show is going to be the Power Conference tournament brackets discussion, and we'll talk about where some of the teams got seeded well, who has a good pass to reach the final, maybe steal a bid, and of course some of the favorites in those conferences. Then we're going to label out some of the lower conference games that are going to take place Monday through Wednesday. We got some finals of, for example, we got the Coastal, we've got the Northeast Conference. We're gonna have the SoCon. We got a lot of good conferences that are looking to clinch automatic qualifiers and to look to be a Cinderella team come March. We're going to talk about some of those. We are going to have a podcast on Thursday, so we're only going to do games through Monday through Wednesday, where we're normally 2 times a week. We're going to get up to at least 3 or 4 times a week podcasting, so we can keep you informed of everything going on in the conference tournaments as we edge closer and closer to March Madness, less than a week away from Selection Sunday. It's getting real. It's getting exciting. Before we get into the results, if you wouldn't mind, please go down, like, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Continuing to grow. Appreciate everyone who's joining us in this process, and of course the full-time listeners who've been with us for a while. Really means a lot. So let's dive right into it. Let's get into some of Saturday's games. We want to talk about some of the Power Conference games first. I mean, North Carolina played Duke. We got to talk about that. Let's start there. North Carolina came in number 7 team in the country, Duke number 9. Final score, North Carolina 84, Duke 79 at Cameron Indoor. North Carolina goes in, takes them down, sweeps the series this year. Great stuff for North Carolina. We'll talk about them, but let's talk about Duke first. I thought about it in the middle of the game, and Duke, I'm thinking, what is Duke's best win this year? I'm like, every time I tune in, I feel like, they're not playing great. They're losing to someone you shouldn't be losing to. Their best win is that neutral court earlier in the year against Baylor. Yeah, that's a good win. That was at Madison Square Garden. Their next best win, though, a neutral versus Michigan State. We're going to talk about Michigan State here in a little bit. They're currently 18-13, and then next best win's a home win versus Clemson at Cameron Indoor. They beat them by 1. Resume is clean. They haven't lost any teams that you really should lose to. They're technically quad 2 games like Georgia Tech, Arkansas. They had that home loss to Pitt. Yeah, their resume isn't as spicy as you think it may be. I mean, it's clean. It's not as bad. You look at their quadrant wins. I mean, they don't have any losses outside of quadrant 2, as mentioned, but they haven't shown that they can beat the good teams this year. They haven't beaten anyone really spectacular outside of Baylor, and they've been hovering on the top 10. Other than that, it hasn't been against a ranked team. So I mean, we saw them dominate Virginia, but we know how bad Virginia is. So something to keep in mind when taking Duke to win the national championship in your bracket, or taking Duke to even make the Final Four. But North Carolina, great stuff. They went in, just got off to a lead immediately and just never looked back. Impressive stuff. Thanks to Cormac Ryan, 31 points, career high, 6 threes. This is going to move North Carolina to a 1 seed for us, especially with Tennessee's loss, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But North Carolina just continues to be steady. They don't lose games they're supposed to. I know they also lost at at Georgia Tech, excuse me. But that's it. They're right there in the conversation of a 1 seed. It's them, Tennessee, and Arizona. And Tennessee and Arizona both lost on Saturday. Let's get into Tennessee. They got beat at home to number 15 Kentucky. Final score, Kentucky 85, Tennessee 81. Antonio Reeves, 27 points. But the story was the white boys on both teams. Reed Sheppard, 27 points, 7 threes. Dalton Connect, 40 points. It took him 29 shots to get there, but still 14 of 29. Battle of Reed Sheppard versus Dalton Connect. 27 points, 40 points. Good stuff. Reed Sheppard just was automatic the entire game, and Tennessee just was relying on Dalton Connect a little too much in this one. But Tennessee had already clinched the 1 seed in the SEC tournament, so a loss isn't going to hurt them too well, other than it drops them probably from a 1 seed to a 2 seed. But hey, if I were the 1 seed in my region, we had them the 1 seed in the West, and you got to play Arizona was the 2 seed in the West, and now with a Tennessee loss and Arizona loss, it goes number 1 seed in the West will be North Carolina, and then it's a toss up between Tennessee and Arizona. So at least now you don't have to play Arizona in the West, where it would most likely be a huge advantage for them. So maybe not the worst loss here, but let's keep it going. We mentioned this game in the intro. Number 14 Kansas went and got drilled at number 1 Houston, 76-46. Complete domination, was never close, never close. Hunter Dickinson was the only one in double figures for Kansas with 11 points. He did leave the game with a shoulder injury, though, so that's something to monitor there for Kansas. Already having injury problems with McCullough and now Dickinson. Kind of already a rough year, and this could get just even worse. Houston is just incredible. What can you say about them? They're number 1 in the AP poll, and they deserve it. They are just as good as anyone in the country. They continue to be the new top dog in the Big 12 this year. Good for them. Moving on, number 5 Arizona lost at USC 78-63. This was a trap game. It was 100% a trap game. Arizona already clinched the Pac-12 regular season and the number 1 seed in the tournament. So kind of just taking it off at USC, and USC is too talented of a team to take it off. I mean, obviously USC came in the game 12-17. No good, but we know they got a lot of talent. They got Isaiah Collier, Boogie Ellis, Kobe Johnson, Bronny James. They're talented, but Arizona just went in and got beat. So couple results here that are just, it's affecting seeding, but it's not affecting nothing too big in terms of conference seeding. Like, it's affecting March Madness seeding, but not affecting the Big 12 seeding, the SEC or Pac-12 seeding. So interesting stuff there. But let's move on to just a few more games we want to talk about on Saturday. We'll go through them quickly. Number 6, Iowa State went to Kansas State and got beat 65-58. We kind of talked about this game being a great spot for Kansas State on our last podcast, and it was. They hang on to a sliver of hope in terms of getting an at-large. Not great. We'll talk about that when we release the Big 12 bracket. Iowa State losing. They're now 6-7 away from Hinkle, so something to keep in mind there. That's not bad. 6-7, you might think is bad. It's not that bad. On the road in the Big 12, it's never easy, but they'll be just fine. Number 11 Baylor went to Texas Tech and got beat 78-68. This is important because this got Texas Tech the 4 seed in the Big 12 tournament. And then UCF went and beat TCU 79-77. TCU is slipping farther and farther down. Last 4 byes at best right now. This was a must-win game for them. It's just a slip-up game, and they let UCF come in and beat them. Credit to UCF. Had a better year than many expected in their first year of the Big 12, but rough loss for TCU. A game you had to win, and it's against a bottom 3 team in the conference. You got to get that one done. That's on TCU there. The number 2 UConn went and dominated Providence 74-60. Another one of those games where Providence, they needed it, and I know it's no easy task taking on UConn, but it was just a blowout the entire way. Providence on the wrong side of the bubble right now. Number 10 Creighton went and beat Villanova 69-67. Thanks to a Trey Alexander buzzer beater, and Creighton actually led by over 20 within the first 10 minutes. Villanova crawled all the way back and then got their heart shattered by Trey Alexander. Villanova on the wrong side of the bubble as well. Then Memphis went to FAU. FAU got their revenge on Memphis earlier this year, 92-84. Remember, they also matched up last year in the 8-9 game where Nick Boyd made a buzzer-beating layup, and Florida Atlantic obviously went all the way to the Final Four. But FAU won this game pretty easily, 92-84. Texas A&M went and beat Ole Miss 86-60. Just complete domination. Ole Miss is probably going to need to win the SEC tournament to get a berth in March Madness this year. But Texas A&M, they're continuing to play much better as of late. keeps adding to the question, do you put in the Texas A&Ms who show they can dominate teams like Ole Miss on the road? Do you put in the Indiana States, the James Madisons who have great records but don't play as good a competition? It's a big conversation. This kind of shows Texas A&M can play with anyone. They're dominant when they're scoring the ball, but obviously a huge debate. We'll get into that here in a little bit when we talk about Drake. Number 17, South Carolina went and beat Mississippi State 93-89 in overtime. South Carolina continues to play great ball. Mississippi State continues to fall towards bubble territory. They're probably last four byes as well right now, cutting it close. Clemson lost at Wake Forest. Wake Forest picked up the win that they needed, 81-76. We talk about Wake Forest playing to their competition. They sure did in this one. Good win over Clemson, quad one win. Wake Forest still on the wrong side of the bubble, but they're fighting. They have some hope to make a little run in the ACC tournament and get in at large. All right, that's it for the big results on Saturday. Now we want to talk about some of the teams that received automatic bids already, some of the smaller conferences. Let's start in the Ohio Valley Conference. The first bid punched was Morehead State out of the OVC. They beat Little Rock 69-55. Morehead State was the 3 seed in the OVC tournament. Little Rock was the 1 seed, although they had the same record in conference play, but Little Rock had the tiebreaker. Expect Morehead State. They're regulars in the NCAA tournament right now. They got a great program. Remember that 3 they hit over Louisville? God, it had to have been 10 years ago now. Big 3. They beat Louisville obviously, and then they handled Indiana well this year at Indiana. They actually led for the entirety of the game. Indiana ended up winning, but kind of shows Morehead State, one of those teams, kind of watch out for. They'll probably be a 14 seed in March. So congrats to Morehead State. Moving on Sunday, Longwood beat UNC Asheville to secure a bid in March Madness. This is out of the Big South. Longwood probably end up being a 14 or 15 seed, I would expect, in March Madness. They were actually a 5 seed in the Big South tournament, but they did beat the top 2 seeds. They beat High Point, who was number 1 seed, and they were the tournament host. That was the more surprising win than over UNC Asheville. UNC Asheville did win the tournament last year, but Longwood took them down. Longwood was there 2 years ago, so this will be their second time in 3 years. Congrats to Longwood there. And then out of the ASUN, Stetson making their first tournament appearance while they beat Austin P 94-91. Congratulations to Stetson. First ever appearance. They will be a 16 seed, probably a play-in game. And then Drake out of the Missouri Valley Conference. It is not Indiana State. It is Drake. Drake beat them 84-80 in the championship game. Drake will be a 11 or 12 seed. Indiana State, we talked about them. They're still alive. They have hope. It's all they left it into the committee's hands, though, which you never really want to do. But this was actually a classic of a game. This was a great game to watch. Drake led by 18 with 10 minutes left in the game. It looked like it was over. Tucker DeVries was going off. Indiana State crawled all the way back and they gathered the lead. It was incredible to watch, and then they just wasted all their energy getting back that lead, and then Drake came back and ended up winning the game 84-80. Congrats to Darren DeVries and his son Tucker. They're going to be a tough out in March Madness. Hopefully they draw I'm sure just about all those 11 seeds are just praying that they get Wisconsin, so they can get a pretty easy first round matchup. But let's move on not the final games, but some semifinal games that were kind of shocking in my mind. Arkansas State went and beat Appalachian State 67-65. App State was the number 1 seed in the Sun Belt Championship. Arkansas State, thanks to a buzzer beater, just crazy. Go look it up. It was an insane shot to make it to the championship game. They're going to take on James Madison, who is definitely going to be favored in that game by probably 8.5 at least points. So that'll be a fun matchup. It'll be Arkansas versus James Madison. James Madison took down Texas State. Texas State was an 11 seed in the Sun Belt tournament and made all the way to the semifinals and hung in there with James Madison till the last seconds. Good stuff from Texas State, but James Madison ended up winning. And then ETSU went and beat Chattanooga 85-84 in overtime. This was the most insane game of the conference tournament season so far. Chattanooga led by 17 late in the second half. I looked it up because I couldn't believe I turned the game off. Chattanooga had won this game. I turned it off, went back. ESPN gave them a 99% chance to win. You look at their win probability, it was 99. I mean, it was never worse than like 96%. It was just domination the whole game by Chattanooga. I couldn't believe when the score came up on my phone. Going to overtime, ETSU ends up beating them in overtime. What a horrible loss for Chattanooga. Good stuff for ETSU fighting back. Good stuff. Congrats to them. We'll talk about their game here in a little bit. They're going to get Samford in the championship game of the SoCon. And then we mentioned Wisconsin. They lost again at number 3 Purdue. No harm there, but they kind of kept it close. Final score was 78-70. It wasn't that close. It was double digits the entire second half basically. This was Zach Edey's senior night. This is the last time Zach Edey's going to play in Mackey Arena. He had 25 points, 14 rebounds. They surprised him at the end of the game by retiring his jersey. That was pretty cool to see. A lot of people saying, why does he get his jersey retired? He's not in the NBA and making a big impact. He's not an NBA All-Star. He is one of the best college basketball players we have ever seen. Don't talk down on what his career has been. It has been absolutely incredible. He's going to be back-to-back Wooden Award Player of the Years. It's really impressive to Zach Edey. Congrats to him on such an outstanding career. Staying in the Big Ten, number 12 Illinois, they beat Iowa 73 to 61. Iowa needed this win desperately bad, just couldn't gain control of this game ever. It was just Illinois from the start. The Michigan State went and lost at Indiana 65 to 64. Michigan State, don't lose your first round game in the Big Ten tournament, and you might be playing in Dayton. They're 18 and 13. I've been seeing a lot of comments. If their name wasn't Michigan State, would they be in March Madness? I really don't know, because their net ranking is what's keeping them in March Madness right now, and we know net is it's a tough system to break. And they actually put up a graphic. This game was on CBS, so credit to CBS on it. They put up a graphic in this game where it was comparing Michigan State and Indiana's resume. Indiana's not in the conversation for an at-large, and they were all close. Like it wasn't a big difference at all. Like it was blind resume. It's close except for the net ranking and except for the KenPom ranking. Michigan State has a huge advantage over Indiana in that, but that just kind of shows it. It depends if you're beating teams bad or you're not. The metrics play a big role, so something to look out for there. Good for Indiana, though. They're playing much better ball as of late. All right, so that's it. The bid secured: Morehead State, Longwood, Stetson, Drake. Those are the 4 teams that have already clinched a March Madness ticket. Next, we're going to dive into some of the power conferences. We're going to pull up the graphics of the bracket in the big tournaments, and we'll talk through those. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to Fanatics. Fanatics provides the best sports gear for fans around the world. They provide college gear, they provide professional gear. Gear up right now for March Madness. They're offering free shipping right now with code 24SHIP. Check it out. The link is in the description. They have jerseys, hoodies, t-shirts, memorabilia, whatever you want for your favorite university. Go get it. Go prepare for March Madness. Link in the description. Claim your free shipping. That's Fanatics. All right, let's move on to the conference tournaments. I'm going to pull up the graphics here for you guys to see. We're just going to go down the list, and it's not in any particular order. I tried to put it in like the KenPom ranking order of the best conferences, but it's kind of off because the Big Ten just released it. So we're going to talk about them last. But we're going to start with the Big 12. Got to start with the Big 12. If you notice the graphic, for those watching on YouTube, sorry on audio, you're just going to have to listen. It's a double bye scenario for teams like Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, and Texas Tech. They all get double byes, which is nice. A few teams in the first round. None of them really are. I mean, it's the teams you expect: Cincinnati, West Virginia, UCF, and Oklahoma State. But moving into the second round, that's where the games are going to get interesting, especially starting with this Oklahoma TCU game, because TCU they're in danger territory right now. Oklahoma not so. If Oklahoma were to lose this game, I think Oklahoma would 100% still be fine. I wouldn't consider them a lock by any chance, but if Oklahoma loses this game, I would guess that they'll probably be a 10 seed. But if TCU loses this game, their non-conference strength of schedule is so high. It is incredibly bad. And it's one of those where the committee could make an example out of TCU and say, hey, you didn't beat anyone in the non-con. You're not going to make it this year because they haven't been great as of late. They haven't been passing the eye test as of late. So if TCU were to lose that game, there's three options: last four buys, first four, or first four out. They're right in there. It all depends. If they were to lose that game, they're going to need some help. We'll see how they do going forward, but I think TCU kind of got the scariest draw here. They're lucky they get to play Oklahoma instead of Texas, I fully believe. I think Texas is much better than Oklahoma. But watch out for TCU. If TCU wins that game, they're fine. I mean, you win that game, you got to play Houston. You're probably not going to beat Houston. But we'll see. We'll see. That's an interesting one. And then the 10-7 game of Kansas State and Texas. Texas is a lock. Texas is going to be in March. We talked about Kansas State. Kansas State just picked up that big win over Iowa State. If they beat Texas, they're back in the conversation. They have to beat Texas to get an at-large bid. I think they're probably going to have to beat Iowa State again, honestly. But that's going to be the decision game. If you beat Iowa State, you're probably in. If you don't, you're out. You're out. If they beat Texas and lose to Iowa State, you're out. I'm not going to say they're 100% in if you beat Iowa State. Then you would have to play the winner of probably Baylor and Kansas. No harm losing those. You go 2-1 the Big 12 tournament. I think you're just fine. But that's a tall ask to beat Texas and Iowa State. Going down, interesting. Kansas, if they beat the winner of Cincinnati and West Virginia, they'll play Baylor. Kansas really been falling off as of late. They need some momentum. I would fully expect Baylor to be favored in that game. Then up top, just going all completely out of order. BYU, if they beat UCF, I'm guessing it's going to be UCF over Oklahoma State. If they beat UCF, they'll take on Texas Tech. So that would be a really fun matchup. I fully expect even BYU being the 5 seed, Tech is the 4 seed. BYU would be favored in that game at Texas Tech. So that's the Big 12 tournament. Obviously, it's Houston's to lose as of right now. They're the best team, but we'll see if Iowa State or Baylor has something to say with that. Moving down into the Big East tournament, you'll notice a couple bye situations here as well. UConn, obviously the number 1 seed. Creighton 2, Marquette 3. The first round matchups in the Big East tournament are intriguing. Butler and Xavier. Xavier is sub 500 right now. They have a better resume than you'd think as a sub 500 team, but they're definitely on the outside looking in. They're going to need to win the tournament. Butler, if Butler were to beat Xavier, beat UConn, beat the winner of Seton Hall and St. John's, and make it to the championship game, I think they would get an at-large bid. It would be close, but I don't think they're yet to the point where they have to win out completely. But they're close. But that's obviously no easy ask to beat UConn, especially a UConn team who didn't perform well in the Big East championship tournament last year. They coming off a defending champion, you're number 1 in the tournament. They're going to want to make a run. They're going to want to win the Big East tournament this year. So no easy task for Butler. They got a lot to do. The Big East is just so bubbly right now. Even the 4-5 matchup is just bubble matchups. It's Seton Hall and St. John's. The winner of that game will be in. I'm fully convinced of it. They should play UConn, we would think, unless Butler beats them. Seton Hall, St. John's, winner of that game, you're in March, 100%. Loser of that game, I would guess probably first 2 teams out. If I had to guess, I mean, obviously there's fluctuation everywhere with how the bubble performs, but that'll be the most intriguing matchup is that St. John's Seton Hall. And then going back to the first round, if Providence and Villanova win, Villanova should beat DePaul, I would hope. Villanova would take on Marquette. Providence would take on Creighton. I think both of those teams are going to need a win over Creighton or Marquette. They're going to need an upset to get in, or I think they're going to be left out. And you might be looking at only a four bid Big East: UConn, Creighton, Marquette, winner of Seton Hall and St. John's. If Providence or Villanova don't beat Marquette or Creighton, so interesting watch there. Let's move on to the ACC tournament. Obviously, Carolina the 1, Duke the 2. Surprisingly enough, I mean, obviously the ACC is down this year. We know it. Virginia is the 3, and Pitt is the 4. Didn't Pitt kind of flying under the radar a little bit? They got a decent little resume there. First couple teams out, so we'll see. They all get double byes. The first round is incredibly, incredibly rough this year. The team I would look out for, and I think I actually drew kind of an easy route to making a little bit of a run here, is Miami. Miami is the 14 seed. Yikes! They're the second worst team in the regular season in in conference play. We know they've got some talent. They get Boston College first round. If Boston, I mean, throw Boston College in here too. If they win this game, they have a kind of easy path. Clemson, I think Clemson and Virginia are the two most overrated teams. Quite frankly, I mean, Clemson, they're okay. They have a good resume. They're going to be a higher seed, but I don't think they're as good as a 5 or 6 seed like they're going to be in March. So say Miami beats Boston College, just a hypothetical. They'll play Clemson in the second round. You beat Clemson, you get Virginia. We know how bad Virginia can be, especially against the Miami offense that can score. Then you get the winner of probably Duke in Syracuse, which should be Duke. So there's a little bit of a path. You avoid Carolina. You avoid I mean, they're the powerhouse. They're the team you don't want to face. So Miami or Boston College, they're in an interesting spot here. But I would obviously be very surprised if Miami were to make the championship game or win the championship. But I do see a little bit of a path there. Wake Forest, we got to talk about them. They're going to play the winner of Georgia Tech and Notre Dame. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think it's going to be Notre Dame. Notre Dame's been playing well as of late. Notre Dame could prove spoiler to Wake Forest in that game, but Wake Forest is going to have to win that one, obviously. And then I think Wake Forest is going to have to beat Pitt. If it's a Wake Forest Pitt matchup, oh, the winner of that game is in a really good spot. The loser of that game will be out, Pitt and Wake Forest. Wake Forest beat Pitt by 30 some, so I would kind of expect, or was it in the 20? It was a blowout, whatever it was. I would expect Wake Forest to beat Pitt, but we'll see. Pitt is sneaky good. Blake Hinson is sneaky good, so we'll see there. Syracuse is going to have to make the championship. They're going to have to beat the winner of NC State and Louisville, and then beat Duke, and then probably beat either Clemson, Virginia, or if that were to be a Miami or Boston College to have any hope. Even then, I'd say it's close. But I think it's North Carolina's to lose. North Carolina, if they take on Pitt or Wake Forest, that'll be a fun matchup. But game I would be most intrigued by is Wake Forest versus Pitt if they take on each other in the quarterfinals. Let's move down. Enough of the ACC. Let's move into the SEC. Let's start with the first round games are just pathetic. Don't watch them. Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Missouri, Georgia. Don't watch them. That's going to be ugly. But going on from there, Texas A&M Ole Miss in the second round is a very fun one. Texas A&M just killed Ole Miss. I think Texas A&M beats Ole Miss for sure. Texas A&M, that means they would take on Kentucky. This if they beat Ole Miss and then beat Kentucky, I think they might be on the right side. It'll be 50-50 if they're in the semifinals taking on the winner of Alabama and Florida. It's 50-50. You beat Alabama or Florida, you're in. You're in. Alabama and Florida have proven to be a little bit vulnerable. So the route would be A&M over Ole Miss, A&M over Kentucky, and then A&M over Alabama or Florida. They'll be in. They have a shot. They've actually been playing really well as of late. I'm not like an A&M fan. I'm not trying to be biased towards them, but they've they've got some firepower. Wade Taylor, Tyrese Radford, and Henry Coleman. They got a big three, and they can make a little bit of noise in this SEC tournament. Going up to the top, South Carolina should beat Arkansas or Vanderbilt, although Arkansas has been playing better as of late. Vanderbilt also just beat Florida, but Vanderbilt's no good. Arkansas, I expect them to win that game, and then South Carolina or Arkansas. South Carolina's a lock. So the top of the SEC really doesn't have that much going for them, other than Mississippi State. Mississippi State in the 9 seed in the SEC tournament, they're probably going to have to beat LSU. If they don't beat LSU, they're either first four or first four out. They're very bubbly right now. LSU is actually the better seed. I've been down on Mississippi State the entire year. I don't think Mississippi State's that good, but this is a must-win situation for Mississippi State. So we'll see. Obviously, the winner of that game, you're not expected to beat Tennessee. So it's crunch time for Mississippi State. They're going to have to pull that one off. That's about it for the SEC. They have so many locks. I mean, Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, South Carolina, Auburn, Tennessee, they're all locks. So not much to talk about in the SEC, but A&M, Mississippi State, they have they're in crunch time right now. Moving into the Pac-12. Pac-12 does only one bye. So Arizona as the 1 seed, Washington State as the 2, Colorado as the 3, Oregon as the 4. They all get the first round byes. The one I'm most intrigued about is Utah. Utah, their metrics are okay. I don't think they're very good, but if they beat Arizona State, which don't put it past Arizona State to beat them because Utah has just been losing to everyone lately. If Utah beats Arizona State, beats Colorado, beats Washington State, makes it to the championship, there's a scenario where Utah might end up back in the at large conversation. Arizona's obviously a lock. Washington State's a lock. That Colorado Utah game is what's going to be exciting to watch. That's Colorado's probably going to need a win. I think if they win, they're in. But we've talked about them a lot. They're first team out, last team in. It keeps fluctuating. They're right there. Colorado's been playing great as of late. I honestly fully expect it to be Arizona versus Colorado in the championship game with Arizona winning it. But Washington State is in the 2 seed, but they haven't been playing great as of late. Colorado has been playing great as of late. So Oregon, let's just mention them real quick. They'll probably play UCLA first round. Oregon is going to have to beat Arizona to have any sort of chance. I think they're going to have to win. They're going to have to beat Arizona and then beat either who that be, Colorado or Washington State in the championship game to get a automatic bid. But that seems very unlikely. Let's move into the Mountain West. Mountain West has just been incredible to watch all year. Utah State is the 1 seed. Nevada's the 2. Boise's the 3. UNLV is the 4. Notice who we haven't said. San Diego State is the 5 seed in the Mountain West this year. National runner-up. They're still probably the highest seeded team because of their non-conference and because, quite frankly, for the committee, their name's San Diego State. But this is a very intriguing matchup. Colorado State and New Mexico have to play the first round games. New Mexico plays Air Force. Air Force beat New Mexico at the pit. Remember that. Keep that in mind. New Mexico is on the wrong side right now. I'm fully convinced of it. I've seen bracketologies where they're in the top 4 or so. Their strength of record's like 77. They're not good enough. I think it would be flawed if they were in right now. But hey, they do pass the eye test in a lot of scenarios. They are talented. So they're close. They're first 2 teams out for me at least. I'm not gonna hate on them being in the tournament for anyone because I can see it, but 77th in strength of record, that's not very good. Colorado State, they're gonna have to take on San Jose State. They should win. Then that'll set up the elite 7 teams that we've seen all year in the Mountain West, which is going to be very fun. So everyone root on New Mexico and Colorado State. That way we get those top 7 in the second round. That would be fun. Plus the winner of Wyoming and Fresno State should be Wyoming. Wyoming's not that bad. But interesting path for UNLV. Let's talk about UNLV. They just lost at Nevada, so they don't really have any at-large consideration. Although if they beat San Diego State, the national runner-up, probably top 5 seed right now, then they beat Utah State, who's the number 1 team in the Mountain West, and they're probably a 5 or 6 seed right now. Make it all the way to the championship game, and then you lose to a Nevada, Boise, a New Mexico, a Colorado State. How can you leave them out? That would be what, 14 of like 16 of their last games they won. If you're looking towards the eye test towards New Mexico, I think you got to do the same thing for UNLV. They're better. They've been playing better as of late. So we'll see. This is going to be a very fun conference to watch. Very intriguing matchup will be New Mexico and Boise State. I think New Mexico is going to have to win that game to get in, but I've been wrong before. We'll see. Colorado State, Nevada doesn't really hold much because I think Colorado State is going to be in. They're not a lock yet, but yeah, they're close. Nevada's a lock. San Diego State's a lock. Utah State's a lock. So I'm more intrigued about UNLV and New Mexico and making a little run there. All right, let's move on to the WCC. Now, this is the one that has already started, but we just got to mention it because it is the 4 teams that we want to see right now. It's number 1, St. Mary's, and number 4, Santa Clara, and then number 2, Gonzaga, and number 3, San Francisco. Hopefully, I'm not going to say hopefully because, we're used to seeing St. Mary's and Gonzaga. It's always a fun watch, but San Francisco has, they haven't beat Gonzaga all year, but they're in desperation mode right now. Gonzaga is going to be in, St. Mary's is going to be in. If San Francisco plays St. Mary's in the championship, You got to get past Gonzaga. We know Gonzaga has San Francisco's number. Hasn't it been like it's been like 25 games in a row that Gonzaga's beat San Francisco or something like that. So we'll see. I'm intrigued by San Francisco, but obviously if it ends up being Gonzaga St. Mary's, always a fun watch. It's always fun to watch those two powerhouses battle it out. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is the Big Ten. It came out late last night. So here is the Big Ten. Purdue, obviously the 1 seed, Illinois 2, Nebraska 3, Northwestern 4. They're in double bye scenarios. But the most interesting matchup to me is Ohio State and Iowa. Ohio State, for those who don't know, ever since Jake Diebler has taken over, they've been lights out. They went and beat, it's Rutgers. Rutgers isn't great, but Rutgers isn't like bad. Like they're like sub 100 in the net. Like they're okay. They went and beat them at Rutgers by 22. They beat Purdue. They won at Michigan State. They're playing lights out right now. They're crawling back in. They're probably next four out. They would either be like fourth in the next four out or like next four out. But Iowa, we mentioned, just lost that game to Illinois. The winner of that game, Iowa, Ohio State, they will play Illinois. I think if they beat Illinois, they're in the serious conversation of making an at-large bid. Even better so, if you beat Illinois, you're going to take on the winner of probably Nebraska and Indiana. That's not a horrible draw there. I mean, I would much rather personally play Nebraska than Northwestern. Obviously, you don't want to draw Purdue, and neither of these teams will. But yeah, it's there's a route to making the championship game for Iowa or Ohio State. Especially, I think Ohio State's going to win this game, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm a little biased towards Ohio State. I'm not going to lie. I'm an Ohio guy, but I think Ohio State's going to get it done over Iowa. I wish Ohio State, as an Ohio State fan, would have drawn like Minnesota or even Michigan State instead of Iowa, because I think Iowa's got they've got some firepower. They can score the ball at will. But if Ohio State beats Iowa and they beat Illinois, I think Ohio State would be maybe a 1 point underdog to Nebraska, but it might be Indiana. So it's like there's a serious path to making the championship game. I think if Ohio State or Iowa make the championship game, lose to Purdue, I think I think you're in. I truly do. I think Iowa is actually closer than Ohio State. I think Ohio State's playing better than Iowa right now. So that's by far, I think, the most intriguing matchup. Either team, Iowa, Peyton Sanford, Josh Dix, Tony Perkins. You beat Ohio State, beat Illinois, beat Nebraska. You lose to Purdue. I think you're in. So we'll see. Michigan State, we mentioned them. They're hanging on. They beat Minnesota. You're good. You're not expected to beat Purdue after that. You lose to Minnesota. 18-14 going into Selection Sunday is not something I would ever want to do. It's Michigan State though; they're high at the net. We'll see if what the committee does with them. Maybe Dayton, maybe still a bye. We'll see. Wisconsin is still in that 5 seed. Keep an eye on Wisconsin. If they'll play the winner of Rutgers, Maryland. That's pretty much a 50-50 game. Then they'll play Northwestern. Northwestern would definitely be favored over Wisconsin, or don't put it out of the question that Rutgers beats Maryland and Rutgers beats Wisconsin, or even Maryland beats Rutgers, Maryland beats Wisconsin. Wisconsin is not good right now, but this is a chance for them to kind of prove that they deserve a top 6 seed or so. You beat Maryland, you beat Northwestern, and you lose to Purdue. No harm in that. So we'll see. Wisconsin, an interesting spot. Then one more team just to keep an eye on. I know we're talking a lot about the Big Ten. Indiana. Indiana's playing great right now. And as we mentioned, they got a pretty good path to making the championship game. What Indiana needs more than Indiana making the championship game is for Purdue to get upset by someone, as crazy as that sounds. Let's just talk about Indiana's path real quick. They will play the winner of Penn State and Michigan. They should win that game. Indiana's actually the 6th seed in the Big Ten tournament, bear in mind. Michigan State is the 8th seed. Iowa's the 7th seed. So just keep that in mind. Keep that Indiana. They're not in the conversation yet. Iowa and Michigan State's in the tournament, and they're an 8th seed. So keep that in mind. Indiana, they beat Penn State. We'll say Penn State beats Michigan. They beat Penn State. You got Nebraska. You beat Nebraska. Let's just say that. Then you get the winner of Ohio State and Iowa or Illinois. You pull off one upset there, and if Purdue were to get upset by Northwestern, Northwestern obviously plays Purdue well, then you're looking at an Indiana versus Northwestern championship game. Hey, anything can happen in the championship game. I don't think Indiana would beat Purdue. Obviously, Purdue owns Indiana, but if Indiana were to play Northwestern in that championship game, there's hope. There's hope. And then I think if Indiana gets to the championship game, you got to have you got to at least give some thought into an at-large bid. But I don't think it's going to get there just because their net ranking, as we mentioned, really low in the net. But so that's the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten is actually the most interesting, and the matchups are the most fun out of all the conferences this year because of just that Iowa Ohio State game has so much on it. That Michigan State Minnesota has so much on it. Then even Indiana, if Indiana plays Nebraska, that has so much on it as well. I'm very excited to watch the Big Ten tournament. Hopefully they stay away from Peacock. But actually they have it labeled here. The first two games are on Peacock, rest are on Big Ten Network. So that's good. At least you can watch those. That's all the conferences we're going to talk about. Next, we're just going to talk about a few games to watch from some of the lower conferences coming up here. Let's start on Monday. That is tonight, 7 o'clock, the Sun Belt Championship. It is Arkansas State versus James Madison. James Madison has 30 wins. We mentioned no team with 30 wins has ever been left out of the tournament. If they lose this game to Arkansas State will probably be the 15 or 16 seed, I would think. I mean, I haven't really looked too deep at their resume. They're 17 and 15, though. James Madison will be favored heavily in this game, though. James Madison wins, they'll be an 11 or 12 seed. If they have 31 wins, they're going to be a popular pick. Also at 7 o'clock is the SoCon Championship, Samford versus ETSU. Samford will be favored, but ETSU has proven spoiler a couple times already. Pay attention to that game. That's going to be a fun one. Obviously, a lot of people are on Samford. Samford wins. They'll be a 12 or 13. ETSU, I quite frankly don't have a clue because I already marked down that Chattanooga was going to win that game yesterday. So we'll see. At 9 o'clock, the WCC semifinals. We talked about this. Number 23, St. Mary's versus Santa Clara. And at 11:30, number 19, Gonzaga versus San Francisco. Keep an eye on those games. Late watch. And then on Tuesday, we have the NEC Championship, Northeast Conference, excuse me. Wagner versus Merrimack. Merrimack was favored at the beginning of the conference. They're in the championship game. Wagner's 500 right now. They're 15 and 15. I think I'd take Merrimack to win that game. They'll probably be playing for a 16 seed. And then at 7 o'clock, the CAA Championship will be tomorrow. The Coastal. That'll be the winner of Charleston versus Towson. Charleston is the number 1 seed. They're the favorite versus the winner of Stony Brook and Hofstra. That conference is better than you think. UNC Wilmington got beat and Drexel actually got beat. Leaving these teams are all pretty solid. Towson's good, Hofstra's good, Stony Brook is they're solid. They got a lot of it's Charleston's to lose right now, but if I were taking Charleston versus the field, I'd probably take the field, but that might be crazy. But those teams are no pushover whatsoever. At 7 o'clock, the Horizon League Championship. This will be the winner of Oakland versus Cleveland State, and then the winner of Northern Kentucky versus Milwaukee. So bear in mind there, I think the champion of the Horizon League is going to come out of that Oakland versus Cleveland State game. Whoever wins that should be Oakland. Oakland is very good. Cleveland State, no pushover whatsoever. Northern Kentucky, they're one of the hotter teams in the country right now, and even Milwaukee's playing great. So bear in mind the Horizon League, they'll probably be playing for a 14 or 15 seed there. At 9 o'clock is the WCC Championship. The winner of obviously St. Mary's and Santa Clara and Gonzaga and San Francisco. It's probably going to be St. Mary's versus Gonzaga, let's be honest, but I wouldn't put it out of the question either of those other two teams win. That game's on ESPN as it usually is at 9 o'clock. And then at 9:30, it is the Summit League final on CBS Sports Network. The Summit League is interesting because South Dakota State is the 1 seed. They have to play St. Thomas, who I actually think is the best team in the conference. And then it'll be the winner of Denver and either North Dakota or Omaha to take on the winner of that game. But if St. Thomas ends up in the championship game, it'll be the other side of the bracket that automatically qualifies because St. Thomas is not yet eligible for March Madness. So keep that in mind. But I kind of a rough draw for South Dakota State because South Dakota State, I quite frankly think deserves to be. If they were on the opposite side, for sure, they beat Denver, North Dakota, or Omaha to advance. But We'll see how that goes. Then on Wednesday, we already talked about it. It starts at 3 o'clock. I just wanted to mention that Oklahoma and TCU play at 3. It's conference tournaments. Time starting early. March Madness. It's early. It's great. We already discussed Oklahoma TCU, the implications there. At 5 o'clock on ESPN2 is the Southland final. Hopefully, I mean, these games are still going on. Hopefully, it's McNeese versus Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Those are the two best teams. It's McNeese's to lose. McNeese and Will Wade, they're by far the best team in this conference. Probably playing for a 12 seed. So hopefully McNeese can get it done. At 7 o'clock, the Patriot League final on CBS Sports Network. Lehigh and Colgate. Colgate dodged a bullet against Bucknell. I mean, I think every team in the Patriot League is like sub 500 overall than Colgate. So it should be Colgate, but Lehigh's playing better as of late. Colgate is more vulnerable than they've been in previous seasons. So CJ McCollum went to Lehigh. They obviously bring in talent still. Colgate, it's theirs to lose. We'll see. Probably playing for if Colgate wins, they'll probably be a 15 seed. Lehigh wins, they'll be a 16 seed. At 11:30 is the Big Sky final. This is wide open right now. We mentioned Eastern Washington lost. They were the 1 seed. They got beat. Teams remaining: Montana, Montana State, Weber State, Northern Colorado, all playing for a chance. Did we mention Eastern Washington lost to Sacramento State? Well, Eastern Washington lost to Sacramento State as the 1 seed. Sacramento State is like 10-23 or something like that. So that was a huge win over Eastern Washington. So throw Sacramento State in there. But I think it'll quite frankly end up being Montana, Weber State, or Northern Colorado. Those are the games to watch. Those are the brackets. That's it for a show today. We're going to call that quits. That is it. As we mentioned, we are going to podcast on Thursday morning. We're going to talk about some of the results of these games, and obviously more bids are going to be punched. And then that's when it's going to be crunch time for the bigger conferences going down the stretch. Who's going to end up winning the Big 12, ACC, Big East, Big 10, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll see if things pan out the way they're supposed to. We know they're not going to. It never happens. So give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's, where we post every bid that's been punched. We post all the big results. We post just about everything you can imagine. We'll post our bracketology on there. Really encourage you, go give us a follow. Keep caught up going into March Madness. You want to beat your friends. You want to win your bracket. Make some money. That's going to be it. Before you leave, please subscribe, hit the like button, comment, whatever you feel like. We really appreciate it. Everyone have a safe rest of their week. Enjoy the great, great college basketball that's going to go on. Stay safe out there. See you later.